Well guys, all the way back in March, I called out what many Battlefield creators are starting to realize just this week. Because as we make our way through the Battlefield 6 beta, a beta that's already beaten Call of Duty's all-time player count on Steam, Delta Force is continuing to look more and more desperate and more sus. But all this really started all the way back in March, where I made a video called 100 Days in Beta, where I scrutinized the practices, failed promises, and ultimately the lies of Delta Force, a game that's backed by one of China's biggest tech conglomerates, Tencent, and a title that's a clear ripoff of 2042 as it chases the straggling player base left over from that game's failure. However, while Delta Force released all the way back in December to well-earned fanfare, the game has missed every single checkpoint thus far and has revealed itself as a blatant cash grab while the developer is seemingly inflating player numbers, botting YouTube videos, and trying to steal Battlefield's momentum as a way to prop up its struggling skin economy. And while I do honestly believe Delta Force is, or at least could have been, a great free-to-play shooter with its amazing weapon customization, tense operations mode, and stunning campaign, the game is ultimately propped up on a bed of lies, delays, and bait-and-switches. Around 8 months in, cheaters still run rampant, controller support is still not fully implemented, and consoles have been all but forgotten about until, coincidentally, around the time of Battlefield 6's beta, with Team Jade once again sounding off on their console release, which has been again rescheduled for August 19th. And while this endless will they won't they with the promised console release has become a generational fumble, their blatant player count boosting, YouTube view botting, and suspect development timeline shines a light into a twisted world of corporate lies and reveals the title as nothing more than a paper tiger. But let's back up. Delta Force as we know it released all the way back in December of last year, declaring itself as an open PC beta, a pre-release early access sort of state that promised rapid development with controller support coming by March of 2025, console support soon after, and a thrilling campaign around the same time, all of which have been, and still are, used heavily throughout the game's marketing. And while the game was released to respectable fanfare, the lies almost immediately started to show through. What was initially deemed an open PC beta immediately started getting a roadmap, paid battle passes, and extremely expensive cosmetics for the game's Counter-Strike-style skin economy. What had been promised as an open beta was quickly turning into a rushed cash grab, where the developers at Team Jade began propping up a real-world economy based on lies and half-baked truths. Suddenly, we weren't in an open beta anymore, we were in Season 2, then we got a mobile version, then consoles were delayed, all the while even more paid cosmetics were being added day after day. We were told in a developer's livestream that controller implementation was proving difficult as the devs had to rework much of the game's UI, especially in operations. An excuse that was proving hard to sell as Delta Force had just released that very game mode on mobile, thus completely overhauling the game's UI to an even greater extent. However, while the developers continued to delay controller support, and even more so delay consoles, players began to check out. The game's skin economy, founded on loot crates, started to tank as paid keys to these dropped from well over $1 to nearly 75 cents during my playtime. And while the rather stunning Black Hawk Down co-op campaign was being critically praised, its brutally difficult and buggy experience didn't do much to appease fans. Delta Force was struggling, missing deadlines, and still not available for casual fans on console, as controller support was proving to be the most difficult development process known to man. But throw in a never-ending war on cheaters that Team Jade was starting to make their entire identity, and that's when I started to put on my tinfoil hat. All the way back as early as December, Team Jade started weekly reports of anti-cheat enforcement, something that was seeing around 10,000 players banned every single month. However, the game continues to not just recapture those lost players, but exponentially add new ones month after month. So as of the end of July 2025, Team Jade has handed out over 49,000 10-year bans, nearly 27,000 devices blocked, and 13,700 DMA bans, totaling just about 90,000 players banned across the 8 months Delta Force has been public. And all the while, the game's Steam numbers continue to grow exponentially, even while, as many Battlefield fans have pointed out, Battlefield's beta continues to set records with over 500,000 concurrent players. And remember, these are all Steam numbers coming from Western countries, as Delta Force actually has an entirely separate build for the Chinese market. So somehow Delta Force is banning 10,000 players a month, while its direct competitor hosts a record-setting beta and still manages to not just hold even, but grow at a noticeable rate. With so many players being absorbed by Battlefield at the moment, like legitimately 500,000 at any given time, Delta Force should be feeling some sort of pressure, but is somehow instead flourishing. Throw in the fact their trailers were outperforming games like Marvel Rivals, while at the same time having a third of the comments, and I'm pretty confident in saying that Delta Force is using some shady tactics to get the appearance of such engagement, as well as possibly just lying about their anti-cheat numbers. And trust me, as someone who works in corporate America, specifically in digital marketing, I'm no stranger to seeing paid bots or view farming being used as a legitimate technique to drive engagement. Hell, a while back, Delta Force was openly paying creators to upload videos about their game and even offered a pay-per-view scheme, which I feel is a rather strange thing to do for a game that's apparently doing so well. So, in my opinion, as someone who's seen these sort of strategies used in legitimate marketing schemes before, here's what I think is happening. First off, I do think Delta Force is doing at least decently overseas. The game's tournaments, especially in South Asia, seem to be doing rather well, but at the same time, I think Team Jade is a little concerned their Battlefield killer is falling behind in Western markets, thus their digital economy isn't doing as well as it should be for such a core element of the title. Essentially, they need players to keep faith in the game, otherwise the player base could lose confidence and stop trading skins, thus creating a legitimate micro-recession where players dump their skins and leave the game. So while the game is doing okay, they need it to look immaculate for their overlords at Tencent. Thus, I believe they've started implementing some nasty tactics like viewbotting their trailers, dropping core development features to focus on skins, and potentially utilizing some sort of real-world view farming to inflate their player count. Essentially paying for a warehouse full of PCs to run Delta Force, thus boosting those numbers, similar to some services where those same organizations will boost views or copy and paste comments as a paid service. Think of a crypto farming setup, but for views. These are legitimately real techniques anyone can pay for, and when you consider how bad the Delta Force matchmaking times have been, all the complaints of bots, the strange timing of their player growth, and all the pressure Team Jade is probably under by Tencent, I'd bet there's a chance they're paying boosting farms to run the game during certain hours of the day, thus giving us this impeccable player count. Throw in the timely console release being pushed during the Battlefield beta, and I think they're really trying to act like they can walk the walk. But after 8 months of delays, lies, and misdirects, this whole situation, especially the timing of the console release, feels so incredibly scummy and desperate. For a few months, they had the FPS community eating out of the palm of their hand, but instead of striking while the iron was hot, they used their promise of a console release and a trickle of content as a way to string players along and pretend like they're the top dog. Ultimately, what could have been a great free-to-play title in between other major releases instead overplayed its hand and has turned out to be a generational fumble in Western markets. I still really want to play this title with my friends on console, but after 8 months of lies, delays, and cash grabs, I think time is well and truly up. But guys, tell me what you think and drop those comments below, and for everything else Battlefield, be sure to stay tuned and subscribe, and as always, thank you guys for watching.